Hello, good day everyone. My name is Nilesh Devadasan, and the topic of my presentation today is communication and assimilation. And this is in context with moving into a different country and trying to assimilate as a doctor working in a new environment, in a new healthcare system. So without further ado, let's move on to the next slide. Now I'd like to speak a little bit about my journey. I graduated in 2010. I graduated in Malaysia. I worked with KKM for about 7 years before I left to Australia in 2018 after having done my AMC exams. My initial plans were to do anesthetics, but I ended up doing rural GP training, and now I am a part-time locum doctor and also a business owner. So this entire project, MYIR Medic, was started by myself and a good friend, Dr. Nishal. We are both the founders of this project. And one of the reasons why we decided to do this was because we saw how much our life changed for the better when we moved abroad to work as a doctor. It has given us so much more freedom and financial incentives that are incomparable to what we were receiving back in Malaysia. So that inspired us to do this. One, we did see an opportunity, and two, we also saw an opportunity in terms of making a difference to our fellow friends' lives in Malaysia, because we went through the same struggle, as doctors, and we know what you're going through as well. Now, the last point that I would like to talk about is why am I a proponent for doctors to move to Ireland or Australia, since I myself work in Australia at the moment. Now, I get asked this question a lot, and I would take some time to clarify this today. The situation back in 2018, even then, when I tried to get into Australia, it was already very difficult back then, for an international medical graduate. And this is in relation to international medical graduates outside of the United States, Canada, and the UK, and Ireland. So the way the system works in Australia is doctors from these select countries are interviewed first, their resumes are reviewed first, and only when they are not able to fill a vacancy with doctors, number one, from Australia, number two, doctors from this select group of English-speaking countries, that is only when they would consider other international medical graduates. So just having said that, you can get a rough idea as to how competitive it is to get in. And bear in mind, my resume was like the fourth to be reviewed for a vacancy in the emergency department of a regional hospital, a rural/regional hospital in New South Wales back then. And I got an interview because the second person on the list that was supposed to be interviewed decided to cancel. And that was a doctor from the UK. And they considered my interview, and they considered my resume, and they looked at my 7 years of experience. I did quite a bit of anesthetics and quite a bit of emergency. They felt it was a good fit, and I got lucky, and I got in. And this was after close to 1 year of applying for jobs, 6 months to 1 year. All I did was just full-time applying for jobs. So I just want to give you a heads up as to how competitive it is. It's not impossible, A lot of you can still apply to go to Australia, but this is one thing that you need to consider. The time it takes to first get through your AMC exams. Second, the time it takes to actually get a job and land a job in Australia. All that has to be taken into account. And lastly, the training program in Australia is extremely competitive. As I previously mentioned, I wanted to do anesthetics. That was my initial plan, move into Australia, become an anesthetist, live the life. But I ended up doing rural GP because getting into anesthesia, the training program was just extremely competitive. It would have taken me a good 5 to 7 years even before I could actually enter the training program. So now compare all that was said about Australia to Ireland. And I know this firsthand because a friend, one of the founders of this company, is like myself, had decided to move to Ireland. He did not have to sit for an entry exam. The internship in Malaysia is recognized in Ireland, and doctors from Malaysia are highly regarded in Ireland. Yeah. So that itself is already a big plus point. Getting into the training program in Ireland is way easier than getting into a training program in Australia because there's a huge void of specialists there. There's a huge vacancy. And the ministry in Ireland have now stepped up to say, look, that we are going to consider applications for higher educational training, specialization training for non-international medical graduates on the same platform as they would consider doctors from Ireland themselves. So in essence, getting into a training program is in general competitive, but when you're comparing it with Australia and for comparing it with Malaysia, in fact, your chances of doing your specialization, your desired specialization in Ireland is way better. So this is why, these are some of the points as to why I decided to talk about it. So you make an informed decision about the path that you choose. Now, let's start. All right. So you're moving into a new country. It's a Western country. They all speak the same. They've got the same culture throughout UK, Ireland, Australia. It starts with hi, how are you? Almost to an extent, if you don't ask a total stranger you've just newly met, how are you? It seems rude to them. Yeah, it takes a while to get adjusted to this. I was baffled myself. Why would someone ask another how are you when they don't really care in the first to begin with? They don't really have that big of an intent to know exactly how you're doing. It's a reflex thing, and you'll have to get used to saying it. Hi, how are you? How's it going? And just walk away from them. It's funny. It's like you're jogging in the park. Someone walks past you, smiles. Hey, how are you? And then you're good. And then you would say, he would say, how are you? And you'll say good, and then you just walk away. Yeah. So that's how it works. And the reason why I started this presentation on this topic is because if you don't do this, it does not come reflex to you. You will come across as being rude. Yeah. So also, you'll need to start to learn the local lingo there, and in terms of what can be considered as rude and what is not. That will take time, but be aware of those things for you to easily assimilate. Yeah. How long this process can take? It can take up to 1 to 4 years. If you do when someone says 6 months, I don't think that's possible. Yeah. So I strongly believe it'll take at least a year, and it can go up to 4 years. And when I say assimilate, what I mean is to be able to confidently communicate your points, and to not feel intimidated when speaking to your colleagues from your Irish counterparts, colleagues, or or even presenting a case, or presenting a presentation to your Irish counterparts. It takes time, because communication is a skill. So I decided to speak on this topic of all the other topics that we have available to you on the educational section. And the reason being is because I feel this is the most important aspect of working in a new country. In fact, I feel the single most one determining factor of a doctor having to assimilate to a new healthcare system, uh, determining factor as to how easily they adapt would depend on how fast they learn how to communicate in that new environment. Yeah. So some of the fear that you could be facing when you first move, yeah, you will need to address them. So that's how you deal with it. Okay, so if you're feeling low in self-esteem, ask yourself why. Most times it has got something to do with communication, not able to convey your thoughts, because of the fear, the low self-esteem. You started making grammatical errors, and you start to feel like you're sounding stupid. Address that. Yeah, so some of the fears, afraid of sounding stupid, not confident with your level of English to be able to speak in front of a crowd of people, fear of your ideas being shot down or challenged, fear that they might not understand your accent, right? As you address these fears, you start to realize that a lot of these fears are not well substantiated. You see, the Malaysian accent is quite clear. You do not need to change your accent. You just have to speak slow and clear, and they will appreciate you for that. And that is one way to look at it. And the reason why I keep speaking about expressing and communicating your thought process and your views in front of a group of people, because when you are working as a doctor, you are expected to team lead. And when you're team leading and you have like 10 people in front of you, like say you're in a busy emergency department and there's resuscitation going on, and suddenly all this daunting fear, comes up at you, and you need to face them. So this is going to be a common occurrence, and that is why we are having this presentation, and that is why we are preparing you towards it. So it wouldn't be so challenging when you're there. Now, some unspoken rules, which I think it's worldwide: politeness. Just be aware of the cultural communication practice. Everyone starts with a hello, how are you? Using words like sorry or I beg your pardon rather than asking straight up what. Yeah, that's one. Saying thank you or please could you do this for me, or please could you get that, could you organize for this investigation, could you please take blood for this particular patient. Finish your sentence with a thank you. It sounds simple and understood, but yet it takes practice, especially because coming from the Malaysian healthcare system, things are just so busy, in Malaysian hospitals, and sometimes this part is missed, and I can understand that, and I do feel empathy, because I know how hard and how busy you guys are, but yeah, we'll need to work around it, and to make sure that this is one checkbox that has to be ticked. If you come across as impolite, rude, you will find it difficult to work in a new environment, because no one is going to be willing to help you. Yeah, so you don't want to be in their bad books. especially the very first 6 months. All right, because why this first 6 months is important is because all contracts that is being put out right now for international medical graduates are 6 months contracts. And if there's a mess up there, and somehow your contract is not renewed, getting a job in Ireland in a different hospital is going to be very difficult. So this 6 months of initial work will be how they're going to assess you to see if you can adapt or if you are what they want you to be. Yeah. So that is why the 6 month rule is quite important. Now I think we already spoke about the accent part of things. You don't need to change your accent. Please don't make yourself change your accent, rather embrace it. Do not try to speak Irish. You would embarrass yourself. Yeah, so don't do that. The reason why you are not understood is because you're using your tongue movements that you use to speak your native language to speak a foreign language. Alright? So instead, speak with all of your mouth. Move your tongue muscles. Okay? This helps with coming across with words that are clear, understandable. It will cause you to speak slowly, but it's better to speak slow than to speak fast and not be understood. Especially if you're working in a team, in a busy department, as a team in a busy department. For example, in the emergency department. And like as highlighted there, the aim is to be clear and understandable, not to sound Irish. Yeah. So remember that. And there's this particular influencer that's quite good on Instagram. You could actually follow him. He gives a lot of good advice on communication. It's Win Gyang. Alright, so that will be a bit helpful as well. Now the third point is listen. There will be many times where you will not be able to understand what your colleague or patient had just said. And this has happened to me countless times when I started work in Australia. And the Irish accent is worse than Australian accent, so I'm assuming it's going to be bad there as well. Do not assume what they heard and make up in your mind what you think they said. Alright? If you have any doubt as to what was said, immediately clarify it. Ask them, say, sorry, I did not get you. Could you please repeat that? And if they are repeating it and you're still struggling, just be upfront and say, look, I just moved to Ireland. I'm finding it difficult to understand the accent. And if you don't mind just speaking a bit more slowly, and I'll be able to get you, then you will be surprised of how many of them will break it down to you word by word, although it takes time, because they want to help. And you will notice that they will start speaking slowly for you to understand. That is the way to go about it. Do not assume that you understood what they heard if you didn't really make up what the words that came out through their mouth. Yeah, because most of the time, based on my experience, it's different from what you assumed. And especially when it involves matters relating to patient care. So this is such an important point, alright? Now empathy, let's talk about that. Just show that you care. Many of the times when there's a breakdown in communication, patient will be very forgiving when they understand that your intent is to help them. Even if you had misunderstood them or if you had made a mistake, they will not fault you if you can show to them that you care. Alright? Speech. Be brief and succinct with your points and communicating with colleagues while at work. You want your colleagues to know exactly what you want from them from the very first sentence. Because they are busy as much as you are, and they are getting heaps of referrals here and there, and they hate it when you beat around the bush, because they are very time sensitive. Alright, they need to be answering another referral as they're talking to you, and they cannot listen to the entire history. So you need to be very clear as to why you're speaking to them, what you expect from them, from the very first sentence, and do it politely. At the end of this presentation, I'll give you an example of how you could do this. So you've got to find the balance of being succinct, brief and clear, and understandable in your speech. So, and also to do all that politely. Yeah, and eventually you will start to train yourself to speak this way, and it'll become reflex and second nature to you, because you'll notice everyone speaks this way as well. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, this also applies to making referrals on the phone. Okay. The sentence after "good day, how are you?" You see, if you're making a referral on the phone and if it's a busy department that you're referring to, sometimes you can get away with asking "how are you?" Just say "good day" and just go straight away to your sentence, in terms of what you expect, what do you want from them. And I'll give you an example at the end of this presentation on how to do that. Names. Your Western colleagues will struggle remembering your names. You will notice that if you wear a name tag, you will get more approaches by everyone around you, and people are more friendly. They wouldn't worry about mispronouncing your name, and they'll be able to work closely with you, in a more transparent manner, rather than them going to another doctor and saying, "What's the doctor's name? I couldn't speak to him because I was sure, I was worried I got his name wrong and I didn't want to offend him." Yeah. So for this reason, wearing a name tag, a simple name tag, is priceless. Just not doctor, just whatever your name is. Say your name is Dr. Johan. Just name tag Johan. What do you prefer to be called? Name tag the front of your shirt. That's all it takes, and you would see a big difference. So invest in that in Malaysia before going to Ireland. Carry heaps of it, because you lose a lot of your name tags as well. And yeah, it's useful. And as much as you want others to know your name, it's really important you remember your colleague's name. When they introduce themselves and tell you their name, please make good attempt to remember it. "Hi, how are you?" And my name is Johnny, and M, and what's yours? And if they tell you their name and you didn't get it, tell them to kindly repeat their name, please, to make sure, and also to show them you're making an attempt from the very beginning to get their name right. This makes a big difference. It is showing your colleagues that you care, and that you want to remember their name. Alright, so knowing your colleague's name from the very beginning will help you a lot with assimilation. Smile and eye contact. So this, you don't worry about this, it will come naturally to you. Alright, reflex. But I just thought I'll leave this as a last point as well. This will be especially important with patients, just so you can set the tone of the consult in a more comfortable and a warm manner. Yeah, so you want to build a good first impression, so that the rest of the consult will be smooth, and the patient will psychologically accept you and trust you, with just simple non-verbal gesture. Lunch break and punctuality. Now, this is important. Say you are messing up in certain aspects, your Irish counterparts will not tell you. So that's a bit tricky as compared to Malaysia. They'll just tell you up front, to your face, yell at you. In Ireland, it's not like that. They will just stay silent, talk behind your back, and then slowly they will start making reports against you, and it goes up to your head of department. That's how it works. So it's very scary in that sense. So the reason why I'm saying this, it doesn't just apply to this point, but all the other points as well. Especially if there's a mess up at your work and all that, they won't tell you. Just politely, they will tell someone else, and then you'll hear about your mistake, or your inadequacies through someone else. So now coming back to this point, if you are late, or you are less punctual, or you go for lunch breaks and you come back more than the stipulated time that you're supposed to have your break, No one's going to say anything, but they will mark you, and it will go up to higher authorities. And whenever you come to work next time, they will expect you to make the same mistake again. They will just label you as such. So my recommendation to you is be very punctual, be time sensitive, respect other people's time as much as yours, respect your patient's time as well, you know. And just like how they would silently, you know, mark you in a negative manner, they can also uh, silently have a good impression of you. And you know, when you're coming on shift, the nursing staff, the head of the department will tell, oh, this doctor is coming in. You can expect this and this from him. He's very reliable, very accountable. You'd want to be leaving that sort of impression because it helps with your future jobs, your resumes, your referee reports. So this is, although it's pretty obvious and needless to say, I thought I should include this. Yeah, because it's important. Friends at work. This relates to nursing staff you work with. Please be kind to your nurses. This rule applies in Malaysia as much as it does in Ireland. Mess with your nurses and you will have a hard time henceforth. Alright? Having said that, you don't have to be overly nice to them. Just keep it professional. A few casual talk here and there is fine, but stick to your job. Be firm with your opinions when you think you are right in a polite manner. Accept their opinions and consider revisiting your stance as you could be wrong. However, after revisiting and analyzing your stance or medical opinion, if you still feel you are right, stand by it and explain to the team what are your reasons to stand by it, and that is why you're going to stick by your decision. This is important. This whole paragraph is important because you are going to get questioned at work. It is a norm there, and you should not get offended. Do not take things personally. If you keep getting questioned, reason with them as to why you're doing what you're doing, and over time you will start learning to become less sensitive about it. Because in Malaysia, when you get questioned by your nurses why you're doing things such and such, it's easy to get offended. It also makes work difficult. But in Ireland, you'll need to build trust, and they don't immediately just trust. In the beginning, there will be these issues. Be respectful of their opinion. Consider revisiting your ideas, and you could be wrong. Imagine some of these nursing staff, especially say for example they're working in the emergency department, they'll be probably doing this same work for the past 10 years. So if they are questioning it, maybe you might want to consider whether your opinion was correct or your decision was right, and then go forward. It could be helpful as well. You might be avoiding yourself from making a blunder, and they were helpful in that way if you look at it from that sense. Having said that, don't get bullied. So when you are completely confident, you know what your decision is right, be firm about it in a polite manner. You can say something like this. What you're saying is reasonable, but I prefer to do it this way now, and then if that doesn't work, we can do it the way that you suggested. It's polite, succinct, and you're suggesting to them, let's try it your way before we consider other options. Confidence. Alright? You will feel low in confidence when you start. Okay, if you don't, then good on you. But most, when starting in a new place, this would be an issue. Especially when you start in a new environment, your self-esteem might take a hit. This is normal. Remaining in that state for long is when it becomes abnormal. Coming to a fully confident level, that can take anywhere between 6 months to 4 years, depending on the person's personality. Yes, some can take up to 4 years to overcome this, and I am one of them. So this is why I have mentioned 4 years. It took me 4 years for me to be completely confident in Australia, in work, when it comes to communication, presentation, leading a team. Just so I've also seen colleagues of mine from Malaysia who do this in 6 months. Amazing, but they're not very common, right? And many factors are responsible for you to build this confidence, but the most important of it all is communication. Yes, experience is up there in the list of high importance. Very good, thorough medical knowledge is important. Being able to vocalize your thoughts and rationalize your decision making, so your patients and your colleagues would be able to understand your communication. Is basically the most important thing. No point having so much of medical knowledge and experience when you are not able to rationalize or vocalize your thought process. No one will be able to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. So yes, exceptional medical knowledge in your specialty will not make that big a difference if you do not know how to vocalize your thoughts, and convey to your colleagues why you're doing what you're doing. So if you come across something you do not know, be upfront and not be embarrassed about it. Say, I'll get back to you with the information, and then you move on from there. What this does is it shows accountability. We are all human beings, and it doesn't make sense to be able to know everything unless medicine is so wide. And this is how you deal with uncertainties in your field of practice. Now, this is another thing. Those who are serious on working on themselves, prepping themselves before Ireland, I highly recommend you to join Toastmaster. I did not do this, but someone told me they did this, and it's a world of a difference. Yeah, if you could join a Toastmaster Club Ireland, that would be the best. But I don't know whether they still have this online. They used to have it during COVID, but you need to check. If you don't have the island, you don't have access to Toastmaster Club Island, then you can probably do the one locally as well, or the one in other foreign countries, America or United States, or Canada or UK or US. It's the same. It's going to help you communicate at a pace where others can understand you. And make yourself clear and understandable. And it doesn't really matter which country, as long as it's a Western country. If you join one of their clubs, and if you can't, then doing it in Malaysia as well is not going to be that bad an idea. Right? So basically, they train you in terms of giving speech and in terms of grammatical errors and and usage of words and whatnot. Very useful. And the best part is you can do this. You can start attending these sessions online while in Malaysia, while awaiting your IMC registration. Now I've included this slide because I mentioned it before, and I just want to give you an example. All right, when you're making a referral or you're asking for advice over the phone with a particular specialty, you can start like this. Hi there, this is Johnny. I am one of the doctors in the emergency department. May I have a moment of your time so I can talk to you about a patient I would like to transfer to your care for an admission? Or it could be, may I have a moment of your time so I can talk to you about a patient that I would like to get advice about in terms of management? So what you have done in that very first sentence is first you have shown your colleague that you're polite. You have introduced yourself. You have conveyed to them that you are respectful of their time. And you have conveyed the exact reason of your call in the very first sentence. So they won't be left trying to figure out what you want. And this is so important. So remember, they're getting heaps of calls, and if one of the referrals that they get starts off from this tone, it just starts the whole conversation and communication from a very warm comfortable, soothing perspective, they're like, okay, I'll give a moment of my time to listen to this. You know? And this makes a huge difference with your relationship with your colleagues from different specialties. And I would encourage you to start your referrals like this and notice the difference. Yeah. This is the last slide. Alright, so guys, moving to a different country, working in a new healthcare system, bringing your family, adjusting and all that is going to be challenging. Assimilating, learning the local lingo, understanding the local lingo, communicating, is challenging and it takes time. Do not be hard on yourself. It took me 4 years. Right? And I used to question myself, why is this taking me so long? So it's a process, and eventually you'll need to be kind to yourself and give yourself room and space to learn. Some take longer time than others. Some of you are very intelligent and have great insight. You're able to pick things up faster. The process will be a bit more simpler for you. And some won't have such luxury. They probably have different personality traits and whatnot. To this group of people, I would suggest for you to be kind to yourself. Do not take things too hard on yourself, because the challenges and the obstacles are expected. Alright? And having said that, guys, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you to the MYIR Medic community. We strive to do our very best to help you and make you feel comfortable, not in Malaysia but also in Ireland. And we wish you all the best. And we wish you the best that Ireland has to offer. Thank you and have a good day.